Your bodyguard works for them. The quiet girl's whispered warning shattered everything the Mafia boss thought he knew about loyalty. Dominic Castellano moved through the crowded parking lot of St. Augustine's Elementary School, his tailored suit and calculated stride marking him as someone who didn't belong among the minivans and parent volunteers. He'd come for his nephew's fundraiser, a rare public appearance for a man who controlled New Harbor's underworld from the shadows. At 42, Dominic had survived 15 years at the top of the Castellano crime family. Assassination attempts, hostile takeovers, betrayals that would have destroyed weaker men, he'd outlasted them all. His survival depended on two things: ruthless intelligence and absolute loyalty from his inner circle. Especially from Lucas Gray, the man walking 3 steps behind him now, hand always near his concealed weapon. 8 years. That's how long Lucas had been Dominic's personal bodyguard. 8 years of sleeping in the adjacent room, of being the only person allowed within killing distance when Dominic was vulnerable. 8 years of perfect, unquestioned loyalty. Or so Dominic had believed. She appeared so quietly that even Lucas didn't notice at first. A small figure weaving through the crowd of chattering parents and excited children, 7 years old, maybe 8, wearing a faded denim jacket despite the autumn warmth. Dark hair pulled into 2 neat braids. But it was her eyes that stopped Dominic cold when she looked up at him. They were too old for her face, too knowing. The eyes of someone who'd seen things children should never witness. And the little girl reached out, her small hand tugging gently at Dominic's sleeve. When he looked down, she rose on her tiptoes and, in a voice barely above a whisper, quiet enough that only he could hear, she said, "Your bodyguard works for them, sir. I saw him. At the pier. With the bad men." Before Dominic could respond, Lucas stepped forward, his professional smile firmly in place. "Everything all right, boss?" His hand moved subtly, positioning himself between Dominic and the child, protective as always. Or was it? Just a kid looking for her parents, probably. A teacher rushed over, apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Castellano. Lily, honey, you can't just approach people like that. Come on, let's find Margaret." She reached for the child's hand, already pulling her away. But Lily didn't move right away. Instead, she looked directly at Lucas. Not with fear. That would have been normal. She looked at him with recognition, with certainty. And then, just as quickly, her expression shifted into something Dominic had seen in his own world. Strategic invisibility. The child made herself small, unremarkable, forgettable. It was a survival skill, one that couldn't be taught, only learned through necessity. Lucas's smile never wavered, but Dominic caught it. The briefest flicker of tension in his bodyguard's jaw. A microsecond of something that might have been alarm. Dominic's mind raced through calculations. A confused child, a case of mistaken identity. Kids see things, imagine things, exaggerate things. Lucas had been vetted more thoroughly than anyone in his organization. Background checks, polygraph tests, 8 years of flawless service. And 2 assassination attempts stopped. A bullet taken in 2019 that should have hit Dominic's spine. But Dominic had survived 15 years in a world where paranoia kept you breathing and trust got you killed. And every instinct honed by those 15 years was screaming at him now. The child's eyes hadn't shown confusion or imagination. They'd shown certainty, and worse, they'd shown pity. As if she knew something terrible that he didn't. As if she'd tried to save someone before and failed. "Lucas," Dominic said carefully, his voice betraying nothing. "Head back to the car. I'm going to stay for a few more minutes. My nephew wanted to show me his science project." "I should stay with you, boss. Protocol." "The parking lot of an elementary school?" Dominic smiled. "I think I can manage 10 minutes without an armed escort. Besides, well, you're making the PTA nervous." Lucas hesitated, and that hesitation meant everything. After 8 years, he should have simply obeyed. Instead, his eyes scanned the parking lot, lingering for a fraction too long on the small girl now being led toward the school building. "Of course, boss." Lucas nodded and walked toward the black SUV. Dominic watched him go. Then he turned and looked in the direction the child had disappeared. She was standing at the school entrance, her hand in an older woman's grasp. But she was looking back at him. And in that moment, with the afternoon sun slanting through the autumn leaves, Dominic Castellano, a man who trusted no one, made a choice that would change everything. He believed a stranger, a 7-year-old child he'd never met before. Because in a life built on deception, sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can encounter is someone telling you the simple, terrible truth. If you're already hooked by Lily's warning and wondering what Dominic will discover, you're in for a story about loyalty, betrayal, and the unlikely heroes who save us when we least expect it. Stay with us. That night, alone in his private study at the Castellano estate, Dominic did something he hadn't done in years. He went back through the security logs himself, not delegating to Lucas or anyone else, but personally reviewing months of data. And there it was, a pattern he'd never noticed because he'd never had reason to look. Every Tuesday at 11 p.m. for the past 6 months, Lucas left the estate. The logs always said the same thing. Perimeter security check, always returning by 2 a.m., always alone. Dominic leaned back in his leather chair and stared at the ceiling, his mind already working through possibilities, contingencies, threats. But underneath the tactical thinking, one question burned. If Lucas has been meeting with them, whoever they are, for 6 months, what have I already lost? And who else in my organization has been turned? The little girl with the old eyes had opened a door Dominic couldn't close. Now he had to walk through it, even if it led to the destruction of everything he'd built. What he didn't know yet was that this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about his 10-year-old daughter, Isabella. It was about a plot so vicious that his enemies weren't planning to kill him. They were planning something far worse. And time was running out. Lily Chen lay awake in her small bedroom on the 2nd floor of Margaret's house, 3 blocks from the New Harbor waterfront. The digital clock on her nightstand read 11:47 p.m. She knew because she'd been watching the numbers change for the past 2 hours. Sleep didn't come easily anymore. It hadn't since she was 4 years old. Through her window, she could hear the distant foghorn from the harbor, a sound that most people in this neighborhood had learned to tune out. But Lily didn't tune anything out. She couldn't afford to. Her mind replayed the afternoon at St. Augustine's fundraiser with the precision of a video recording. She saw it all. 17 silver sedans in the parking lot, 23 SUVs, 8 pickup trucks, license plate KJH4782 on the black vehicle where the bodyguard had waited. Though the Mafia Boss had been wearing a charcoal suit with subtle pinstripes, Italian leather shoes, a watch that caught the sunlight at exactly 3:47 p.m. when he'd looked down at her. His eyes had been dark brown, calculating, but not cruel. Just careful. The way people who'd survived dangerous things always were. She'd seen that carefulness before. 4 days ago, at the old pier. The memory pulled her back. Tuesday afternoon, 4:23 p.m. Lily had been walking home from school, cutting through the abandoned waterfront district because it shaved 10 minutes off her route. Margaret worked until 6, and Lily liked being home before dark. The pier area was mostly deserted. Rusted shipping containers, broken concrete, the skeletal remains of fishing operations that had closed before Lily was born. That's when she'd seen him. The bodyguard, tall, muscular dark hair, a scar on his left cheekbone, stepped out of a black SUV. She'd recognized him immediately from the newspaper photo in the school library. 2 weeks earlier, she'd been researching for a social studies project about local businesses when she'd stumbled across an article. Castellano Import/Export, New Harbor's controversial success story. The photo showed Dominic Castellano at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, and standing just behind his right shoulder was the man identified in the caption as Lucas Gray, head of security. At the pier, 3 men in expensive suits emerged from a warehouse. Even from her hiding spot behind a dumpster, Lily could read their body language. This wasn't a friendly meeting. Lucas looked tense, defensive. The oldest man, silver-haired, commanding, showed Lucas something on his phone. Lucas's reaction had been visceral. He'd actually staggered, caught himself against the car. Lily had memorized every detail. The silver-haired man's face, the other 2 men, one with a crooked nose, one wearing gold rings, the warehouse number, 7B, the time, 4:37 p.m. The way Lucas had looked after they'd left, like someone drowning. She'd wanted to tell Margaret. But how do you explain that you were watching criminals at an abandoned pier? How do you make adults believe you when they already think you're damaged? The deeper memory surfaced then, the one that never really went away. 3 years ago, the hallway closet. Lily had been 4 years old, playing hide-and-seek with her father. She'd found the perfect spot, wedged between winter coats that smelled like her mother's perfume and her father's aftershave. And she'd been so proud of her hiding place, covering her mouth to keep from giggling. Then, the sound of breaking glass downstairs, her mother's voice rising in question, then alarm. Her father's footsteps, heavy, running. Her mother's scream cut short by a sound Lily would later learn was a gunshot. Another shot. Then men's voices, angry, searching. "Check upstairs." Lily had stopped breathing. Literally stopped. Her small hand pressed against her mouth, her body frozen in that particular stillness that only prey animals and terrified children can achieve. Boots on the stairs. Closet doors opening. Her closet door opening, and somehow, impossibly, they hadn't seen her, pressed back into the corner behind the coats, invisible. 14 hours. That's how long she'd stayed there after the men left. Through the night, through the morning, and until police responding to a neighbor's call about shots fired finally found her. She hadn't cried, hadn't spoken, just stared at them with eyes that had learned too early that survival meant noticing everything and trusting no one. "Lily?" Margaret's soft knock pulled her back to the present. "You awake, honey?" "Yes, ma'am." The door opened, and Margaret Chen appeared, 55 years old, gray hair in a neat bun, lines of exhaustion around kind eyes. She worked 2 jobs, lunch lady at St. Augustine's during the week, volunteer coordinator on weekends. She'd taken in 3 foster children, Lily and 2 teenage boys, to make ends meet after her own children had moved away and her husband had passed. The house was too big for one person, she'd told the social worker. Might as well fill it. "Can't sleep?" Margaret sat on the edge of the bed, but Lily shook her head. "Want to talk about it?" "I saw a man who works for the Mafia meeting with dangerous people. I think something bad is going to happen. And the man who lives in your garage apartment is cleaning rifles." "Just thinking about school stuff," Lily said instead. Margaret studied her for a moment, then squeezed her hand. "You know you can tell me anything, right? Even the hard things." "Especially not the hard things," Lily thought. "Adults don't believe kids about hard things. They think we're exaggerating, making it up, being dramatic." "I know," she said. After Margaret left, Lily lay in the darkness and thought about Mr. Raines, the tenant in the garage apartment. He'd moved in 2 months ago, a quiet man in his 40s who paid cash, worked odd hours, never made trouble. Perfect tenant, Margaret had said. But Lily had noticed things. The long cases he carried in late at night, the phone conversations in Italian through the cracked window, and 2 nights ago when Lily had been taking out the trash, She'd seen him through the garage window, methodically cleaning a rifle at his table. The pieces were connecting in her mind. Mr. Raines, the bodyguard, the men at the pier, the Mafia Boss, and Isabella Castellano, the 10-year-old girl in her grade, whose father drove her to school in an armored SUV. Lily made a decision. Tomorrow after school, she'd go back to the pier. If she saw the bodyguard there again, she'd know this was a pattern, not a coincidence. And this time, she'd bring her foster brother's old digital camera, the one he'd left behind when he'd aged out of the system last year. She would document everything. And because that's what survivors did. They watched. They remembered. They prepared. And if she was right about what she suspected, she might be the only person who could prevent what happened to her parents from happening to someone else. Even if that someone else was the daughter of a mafia boss. Raymond Torres arrived at Castellano Import/Export at 7 a.m., which meant Dominic's message had been marked urgent. The attorney was 62, silver-haired, with the sharp eyes of a man who'd spent 12 years navigating the gray zones between legitimate business and the underworld. He was one of 3 people Dominic trusted absolutely. Lucas Gray had been another. Dominic's private office occupied the top floor of the waterfront building, all glass and steel designed to project legitimacy. Import/Export was real, profitable, and clean. It had to be. It was where Dominic laundered his reputation. "You look like hell," Raymond said, setting his briefcase on the mahogany desk. "I didn't sleep." Dominic handed him a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, the way Raymond had taken it for 12 years. "I need you to investigate Lucas." Raymond's expression didn't change, but his hand paused halfway to the coffee. "Lucas Gray? Your bodyguard, Lucas?" "A child warned me yesterday. 7 years old. She said Lucas works for them." "Them?" "She didn't specify, but she said she saw him at the pier with bad men." Raymond sat down slowly. "Dominic, Lucas has been vetted 100 times. Background checks, financial audits, psychological evaluations. He took a polygraph test last year during the security review. He passed everything." "A 7-year-old child looked at him like she was staring at a ghost," Dominic said quietly. Not fear, recognition. And Lucas saw her see him. For exactly 2 seconds, his mask slipped. Raymond was silent, processing. This was why Dominic trusted him. Raymond didn't dismiss things just because they seemed impossible. He calculated probabilities. "What do you want me to do?" "Everything. Background, financials, movements. I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, what he's hiding." Dominic pulled up security footage on his computer. "I've been reviewing the logs. Look at this." The footage showed Lucas at a copy machine in the security office late at night. Timestamp, 2:37 a.m. "He's making copies of the security rotation schedules," Raymond observed. "Unauthorized?" "Completely. This was 3 weeks ago. And here..." Dominic clicked to another file. 2 months ago. Same thing. "Who would he be giving them to?" "That's what we're going to find out." Dominic stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor. "I'm assigning Tony Benedetto and Frank Russo to tail him. Discreetly. They don't know why, and they don't tell anyone. Not even each other." Raymond nodded. "I'll start with financial records. Shell companies, offshore accounts, unusual transactions. If he's being paid by someone, there'll be a trail." "And Raymond? Lucas doesn't know we're looking. Nobody does. If I'm wrong, I need to be wrong quietly. And if you're right?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "Then I've been sleeping 3 feet away from a traitor for 8 years. That afternoon, Dominic picked up Isabella from ballet practice at the New Harbor Dance Academy. She burst through the studio doors at 4:30 p.m. exactly, dark curls bouncing, pink tights visible beneath her jacket, her face flushed with exertion and joy. "Dad, watch this!" She dropped her bag and executed a pirouette in the parking lot, arms raised, nearly perfect form. "Beautiful," Dominic said, and meant it. At 10 years old, Isabella was becoming a real dancer. She had her mother's grace, her mother's smile. 3 years since the accident, and sometimes the resemblance still took his breath away. "Miss Caroline says I'm ready for a solo in the winter recital." Isabella climbed into the SUV, still chattering. "She's been giving me private coaching on Saturdays. She says I have real potential, Dad. Can you believe it?" "I can absolutely believe it." Dominic pulled into traffic, but his mind was already working. Private coaching. Saturdays. Had he approved that? Had Lucas arranged the security? "She's the best teacher," Isabella continued. "All the other girls are jealous because she chose me for the solo. It's the Dying Swan. That's a really famous ballet, Dad. Really hard." "When's the recital?" "December 15th. You'll come, right? You have to come." "I'll be there. Front row." He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Does Lucas usually pick you up on Saturdays?" "Sometimes." "Or Nina, the new teacher's aide." Isabella wrinkled her nose. "She's nice, but she follows me everywhere, even to the bathroom. Well, not in the bathroom, but like, outside. It's weird." Not weird, Dominic thought. Necessary. He'd assigned Nina Petrova, former Russian intelligence, now one of his most trusted operatives, to shadow Isabella at school 2 days ago. He disguised as a teacher's aide, armed and under strict instructions. Isabella's safety above everything else. He hadn't told his daughter why the security had increased. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that her father suspects betrayal? That the man who's been protecting her for years might be the greatest threat? "Nina's there to help," Dominic said carefully. "Some of the teachers are overwhelmed this semester." Isabella shrugged, already moving on to describe the costume for her solo: white tulle, feathers, a crown. Dominic half listened, his mind cataloging threats. The ballet teacher giving private lessons, the recital in 6 weeks. Large crowds, multiple exits, limited security control. If someone wanted to target Isabella, a public performance would be... His phone rang. School, St. Augustine's Elementary. "Mr. Castellano?" The principal's voice was tight with controlled panic. "There's been an incident. Nina stopped it, but I think you should come immediately." 20 minutes later, Dominic sat in the principal's office reviewing security footage with Nina standing beside him, her expression professionally blank, but her eyes furious. "Recess, 2:15 p.m., Nina said. Male, approximately 40 years old, approached the playground fence. Called Isabella's name. When she started walking toward him, I intercepted. The footage showed Nina moving fast, positioning herself between Isabella and the fence, one hand on her concealed weapon. The man had smiled, raised his hands in mock surrender, and disappeared into the parking lot. I pursued, but he had a vehicle staged. Nina's accent thickened slightly with anger. I prioritized the principal's safety over capture." "You did exactly right," Dominic said. His voice was calm, but his hands were white-knuckled on the chair arms. "Rewind to his face." The principal obliged. The footage froze on a clear shot. Crooked nose, scarred cheek, cold eyes that had seen too much violence. Dominic knew him immediately. Carlo Brennan, Russo family enforcer. The man had 3 murders attributed to him, none proven. He specialized in making problems disappear, permanently. "You know him," Nina observed. "I do." Dominic stood, his mind already calculating. The Russo family, Lucas's meetings at the pier, the warehouse, and now a Russo enforcer trying to approach Isabella at school. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was war. "Double Isabella's security," he said quietly. "Nobody gets within 50 feet of her. Not teachers, not parents, not maintenance staff. I don't care if you have to carry her between classes. And Nina?" "Yes, sir?" "Find out everything about Miss Caroline, the ballet teacher, every detail of her life. I want to know by tomorrow morning." Raymond called as Dominic was leaving the school. "We found something. Lucas visited a property last night. Warehouse 7B on the industrial waterfront. Ownership? Shell company. 3 layers deep. It traces back to the Russo family." Dominic's blood turned cold. "What else?" "Lucas's sister, Emily Gray. She disappeared 3 years ago. Same month Lucas passed his background check to work for you." Raymond's voice was grim. "Official story says she moved to California, cut family contact. But Dominic? There's no trail. No credit cards, no social media, no employment records. She didn't move. She vanished. 3 years ago, the same month his wife died in what was ruled an accident, the same month Lucas Gray entered his life, vetted and perfect and positioned within killing distance. They took his sister," Dominic said slowly. "They've been holding her for 3 years. They turned him. It looks that way." Dominic ended the call and sat in his car, watching Isabella through the school window. She was laughing with friends, oblivious, safe for this moment. The Russo family had kidnapped a woman to insert a weapon into his life, and now they'd sent Carlo Brennan after his daughter. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message with a single photo. Isabella leaving ballet practice, taken from across the street. No words, just the image. The message was clear. We can reach her whenever we want. And Dominic stared at the photo, and for the first time in 15 years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Fear. Lily didn't board the yellow bus after the final bell. Instead, she slipped through the side gate, the old digital camera from her foster brother's drawer already tucked inside her backpack, nestled between crumpled worksheets and a half-eaten granola bar. The camera was heavy, reassuring. She walked the 3 miles to the pier with her head down, hood up, just another kid cutting through the industrial edge of the city. The old fishing shack sat crooked on pilings at the far end of the wharf, its windows long ago boarded, its door hanging by one hinge. Lily ducked inside, careful not to disturb the dust that had settled like gray snow. Hurry through a jagged gap in the plywood, she had a clear line of sight to the meeting spot, a stretch of cracked concrete between 2 rusted shipping containers, their faded logos peeling like old skin. The air smelled of salt, motor oil, and something faintly rotten drifting off the water. Gulls screamed overhead. Lily crouched low, knees against her chest, and waited. At 4:17 p.m., a black SUV rolled in, tires crunching gravel. Lucas stepped out first, same dark jacket, same tight shoulders. Lily lifted the camera, lens steady despite the tremor in her fingers. 3 men emerged from the warehouse shadows. The one in front moved like he owned the ground beneath him. Late 50s, silver hair swept back, charcoal suit that looked too expensive for this place. Antonio Russo, she guessed, though she'd only heard the name once, whispered. And the other 2 hung back, hands loose near their waists. Lily clicked the shutter, frame after frame. Her breath fogged the viewfinder. She couldn't hear the words, too far, wind too loud, but the bodies told the story. Lucas stood stiff, arms crossed tight across his chest. Defensive, angry, desperate. Antonio spoke calmly, gesturing with one manicured hand. Then he pulled out his phone, angled the screen toward Lucas. Whatever Lucas saw hit like a fist. His knees buckled. He caught himself on the hood of the SUV. His face twisted. Pain, fury, something broken. Lily's finger kept pressing the shutter. 47 photographs in 12 minutes. The numbers glowed green on the little display. One of the men, the shorter one with the shaved head, glanced toward the shack. His eyes narrowed. Lily froze. And she knew this feeling, the sudden weight of being seen. She pressed her back to the splintered wall, made herself small the way she had in countless closets, under beds, behind laundry hampers. Invisibility was a skill she'd practiced longer than most kids her age. The man, Mr. Raines, the one who rented Margaret's garage apartment, started walking toward her. Slow steps. Deliberate. He stopped 5 feet from the shack, pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it. The flame flared orange against the gray afternoon. Smoke curled upward. Lily barely breathed. Her heart hammered so hard she was sure he could hear it through the thin wood. 2 minutes. It felt like hours. He exhaled, flicked the cigarette into a puddle, and turned away. The group was already loading back into the SUV. Tires spun. They were gone. Lily stayed curled in place for another 20 minutes, counting her breaths until the pier felt empty again. She couldn't just walk up to Dominic a second time. Adults never listened to children about serious things. They smiled, patted heads, said, "Run along." She had to be smarter. The public library was 4 blocks away. Lily used the last of her bus fare to ride there, sat at a public terminal, and uploaded the photos. Her hands still shook as she selected the clearest ones. Lucas's face in agony, Antonio's calm profile, the phone screen blurred but damning. She printed them on cheap paper, 5 sheets total. At the circulation desk, she asked for a manila envelope. The librarian gave her one without asking questions. Lily wrote the address in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, Dominic Castellano. Castellano import/export inside went the photos and a single sheet of notebook paper. Your bodyguard meets these men every Tuesday at the old pier. One of them lives in my foster mom's garage. They talk about someone named Isabella. Please believe me. Lily. She sealed it, printed the company address from their website, and caught the next city bus downtown. The Castellano building rose sleek and cold. Marble lobby, glass everywhere. Lily felt like a smudge on the polished floor. The receptionist glanced down, already forming the polite dismissal. "I have something for Mr. Dominic," Lily said, voice small but steady. "It's urgent. For his eyes only." The woman smiled the way adults smile at children with imaginary emergencies. Before she could speak, a security guard stepped forward. Broad shoulders, earpiece, one of the men who'd stood at the edges of the school fundraiser. He looked at Lily, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. He remembered the tiny girl who'd made his boss freeze in the middle of a crowded gymnasium. "I'll take it up myself," he said quietly. Lily handed him the envelope. Her fingers brushed his palm, cold against warm. She didn't wait for thanks. She turned and left. Back home, the kitchen light was on, warm against the early dark. Margaret sat at the table, face in her hands, crying softly. Lily paused in the doorway. "He gave notice," Margaret said without looking up. "Mr. Raines, moving out tonight. Just like that. I don't know what I'm going to do about the rent." Lily's blood turned to ice water. They knew, and they were already erasing everything. Dominic was still at his desk when the knock came. Sharp, 2 raps. The security guard from the lobby stepped inside, holding a plain manila envelope like it might bite. "From the little girl, sir. She said urgent. For your eyes only." The guard left without waiting for a reply. Dominic turned the envelope over. No stamp, no return address, just his name in careful, rounded handwriting and the words urgent scrawled beneath it. He slit the flap with a letter opener. 5 photographs slid onto the blotter. Lucas beside the black SUV. Lucas facing Antonio Russo, silver hair catching the pier light. Lucas with Carlo Brennan and 2 others Dominic recognized instantly, known Russo soldiers. The images were grainy but unmistakable. Then the note, written in the same small hand. "Your bodyguard meets these men every Tuesday at the old pier. One of them lives in my foster mom's garage. They talk about someone named Isabella. Please believe me. Lily." Dominic stared at the last photo longest. Lucas, staring at a phone screen, face collapsed in raw anguish. The truth landed like a blade between ribs. Coercion. Not betrayal born of greed or ambition, something worse. He pressed the intercom. "Raymond, now." Raymond arrived in under 90 seconds. Dominic didn't speak at first, just pushed the photos and note across the desk. Raymond scanned them, jaw tightening with each image. Immediate termination, Raymond said flatly. We can make it look like an accident. Clean. No. Dominic's voice was quiet steel. If he wanted me dead, I'd already be in the ground. There's something else here. We talked to him. Tonight. They prepared methodically. Micro-recorders hidden in the bookshelves of the private office at the estate. 2 men stationed in the anteroom, weapons ready. Escape routes sealed. Dominic called Isabella into the study, told her she was going to Boston for a week with her cousins. A little adventure before the recital. She hugged him, excited, oblivious. He kissed the top of her head and watched the car pull away into the night. Lucas noticed the change. Extra cars in the drive, men moving differently, but he said nothing. He never questioned orders. Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. Dominic summoned him to the office. Wood-paneled walls glowed amber in the firelight. 2 leather chairs faced each other across a low table. A decanter of whiskey sat between them, 2 glasses untouched. Lucas entered, shoulders squared, eyes wary. You wanted to see me, boss? Sit. Dominic gestured to the chair. We've been through a lot together, haven't we? 8 years. Lucas lowered himself slowly. Best 8 years of my life. Dominic studied him a long moment, then reached into the drawer and laid the photographs on the table, one by one. Lucas's color drained. His right hand twitched toward the concealed holster beneath his jacket, then froze. Don't, Dominic said softly. We both know you're faster than me, but you won't make it past this room alive. And more importantly, you don't want to kill me, do you, Lucas? The mask cracked. Lucas's shoulders sagged. How long have you known? Long enough. A little girl saved my life. Ironic, isn't it? 15 years of war, and it took a 7-year-old to see what I couldn't. Lucas exhaled, a broken sound. Then the words came, fast and ragged. 8 years of pressure and guilt finally breaking free. 3 years ago, his sister Emily vanished outside her Chicago apartment. No police report. Russo made it look like she'd left on her own. The first video arrived 2 days later. Emily beaten, terrified, begging her brother to do whatever they asked. The deal was simple. Infiltrate Castellano, feed information. Emily lives. He passed the background check because there was no missing person file. Passed the polygraph because every word he spoke was true. He would die for Dominic, just not the way Dominic expected. Lucas pulled out his phone, hands shaking, and opened the gallery. Monthly videos, each one worse, the most recent from last week. Emily Gaunt, a hollow-eyed, holding a newspaper dated 7 days earlier. Proof she was still breathing. Barely. They said if I warned you, she dies, Lucas whispered. If I quit, she dies. If I don't deliver... What do they want? Dominic asked. Lucas met his eyes. Isabella. They're going to kill her at the winter recital. They want to break you the way they broke me. A man who's lost everything is easier to control than a dead man. Silence stretched. Dominic could have ended it then. Nod to the anteroom. 1 shot. Done. Instead, he stood, walked to the window, stared into the dark garden. They took your sister to turn you into a weapon against me, he said finally. Now they plan to take my daughter to turn me into their puppet. He turned back. We're not going to let either of those things happen. Lucas blinked, stunned. What, you're not going to kill me? You're not my enemy, Lucas. You're a victim caught in their trap. The Russos are the enemy, and we're going to burn their entire organization to the ground, together. The door opened. Raymond stepped in, face grim. They've moved up the timeline, he said. The recital is in 3 days, not 3 weeks. And we just got word 4 of your 12-man detail are Russo plants, men Lucas was forced to recommend and hire. Dominic looked at Lucas. Lucas looked back. 3 days. The basement beneath Dominic's flagship restaurant smelled of old brick and faint garlic. Soundproof panels lined the walls. A single bulb hung above the long table. Dominic sat at the head, Lucas to his right, Raymond across. 4 trusted men, men who'd bled for the family, filled the remaining chairs. Lucas spoke first. A voice flat, mechanical, like he was reading a confession. Names of the 4 plants: Jackson Webb, Dmitry Kozlov, Sean Murphy, Paul Hendricks. Each one recommended by him over the past 6 months. Meeting spots, burner phone protocols, dead drop locations. The Russo plan in full. During Isabella's solo, 4 gunmen in the audience would open fire into the ceiling. Panic, screams, stampede. While a 5th, Mr. Raines, took the clean kill shot from the rooftop across the street. Miss Caroline, the ballet mistress with the gentle smile and perfect French bun, was Antonio Russo's niece, the inside coordinator. Lucas's eyes stayed on the table the whole time. The men he'd called brothers every morning were planning to murder a 10-year-old girl. His knuckles whitened around the edge of his chair. Dominic listened without interruption. Now when Lucas finished, silence settled like dust. "We don't touch the traitors yet," Dominic said. "They need to believe the recital is proceeding normally. Everything is planned." The substitution came next. Sophia, Dominic's niece, 10 years old, same dark hair, same slight build, would take Isabella's place on stage. A wig, careful makeup, the same costume. Isabella was already safe in Boston, convinced she was simply visiting cousins for extra rehearsal time. Francesca, Dominic's sister, refused at first. "My daughter is not bait," Dominic explained in a low voice over the phone. Another child's life hung in the balance. Francesca cried, then agreed. Sophia overheard and stepped forward herself. "Isabella's my best friend. If it was me up there, she'd do it for me." Raymond raised the next concern. "The little girl, Lily. If she can identify Raines, Russo, 6 others, she's a loose end." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Then we close that end, protectively." Tony Benedetto was dispatched that hour. Unmarked car, civilian clothes, parked 2 blocks from Margaret's house. Lucas confirmed what Lily had already seen. Raines had vanished from the garage apartment overnight. Cell phone pings placed him in a cheap motel 6 blocks from the theater. Roof access. Perfect sightline. Sniper nest being prepared. A second team received parallel orders. Find Emily. Lucas described the backgrounds and the proof-of-life videos. Rusted girders, harbor horns in the distance, the same stained concrete wall. 3 possible warehouses in the Port District. Extraction had to happen before the recital. Retaliation would be immediate if the Russos smelled trouble. But that evening, Dominic drove himself to Margaret's small house on Maple Street. No entourage, just a black sedan and the weight of what he carried. Margaret opened the door, face paling when she recognized him from news photos. "Mr. Castellano?" "I'm not here to frighten anyone, ma'am." His voice was gentle, almost tender. "I'm here to thank your daughter for saving my child's life." Lily appeared in the hallway, barefoot, arms crossed. Wary but not afraid. Dominic stepped onto the porch. Margaret closed the door behind them, giving them space. He crouched to Lily's level. "Everything you told me was true. Bad men wanted to hurt my daughter. Your pictures, your note, they gave me time to protect her." Lily studied his face. "Will you save the bodyguard's sister too? She's like me. Nobody chose to save her." The question pierced. And Dominic swallowed once. "Yes, I promise you. We'll get her out." He gave Margaret his direct number, if anything unusual happens, anything at all, and arranged for Tony to stay close. Invisible watch. 3 days collapsed into motion. Loyal security drilled responses in an empty warehouse. Bomb squad swept the theater twice. Lucas handed over Russo communication frequencies. The tech team listened, ready to feed false chatter when the moment came. Sophia rehearsed with the company, flawless. Miss Caroline noticed nothing. Dominic barely slept, pacing his study, running every possible failure in his mind. Late one night, Lucas found him staring at security monitors. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas asked. "Helping me find Emily. You could eliminate the threat and walk away." "I'll leave her." Dominic didn't look up at first. 3 years ago, my wife died. I drowned in grief and business. Barely noticed my own daughter was slipping away. It took a 7-year-old stranger to wake me up, to make me see I was about to lose everything that actually mattered. He met Lucas's eyes. "I'm not leaving your sister in a cage while I have the power to open the door." Lucas nodded once, slow. Something shifted between them. No longer only boss and bodyguard. Brothers in arms now, 24 hours before curtain. Dominic's phone rang, unknown number. He answered. Antonio Russo's voice, calm and amused. "Dominic, old friend, I'm looking forward to attending your daughter's ballet recital. Such a proud father you must be. It would be a shame if anything unfortunate happened. See you tomorrow night." The line went dead. Yet they knew something was coming. They didn't know what. December evening settled cold over New Harbor Performing Arts Theater. The historic building glowed under strings of white lights, its Art Deco marquee spelling out St. Augustine's Elementary Winter Recital in cheerful gold letters. Parents hurried up the steps with cameras and bouquets. Children in tutus and tiny tuxedos darted between legs, laughing, breathless with excitement. A normal night. Almost. Underneath, Dominic's men stood at every entrance and aisle, dressed as fathers in wool coats, mothers with diaper bags. Plainclothes officers from 3 trusted precincts blended with the crowd. The bomb squad had swept the theater twice that afternoon. Nothing found, but every vent, every seat cushion, every backstage corner checked again. In Isabella's dressing room, and Sophia adjusted the pale wig, heart hammering beneath the white swan costume. Francesca hovered nearby, hands clasped tight, whispering encouragement. Sophia met her mother's eyes. "I can do this." She was 10, small for her age, and determined. The 4 planted security men, Webb, Koslov, Murphy, Hendricks, stood at their posts, faces calm, believing the night would end exactly as planned. Across the street, in an empty office building on the 6th floor, Mr. Raines knelt beside an open window case, snapping the final pieces of his rifle together. Miss Caroline glided through backstage, checking her phone every few minutes, lips moving silently as she typed. Margaret had volunteered to help with costumes. Lily came along, small backpack slung over one shoulder. While pinning a sequined cape, Lily watched Miss Caroline. And the teacher's smile was too tight, her glances too quick. Lily saw her text someone, then lean close to a stagehand, whispering. The stagehand nodded once and slipped away. Lily found Tony Benedetto near the wings, half hidden behind a curtain. She tugged his sleeve. "The ballet teacher is one of them." Tony's eyes flicked to Miss Caroline, then to his radio. "The kid made another spotter," he murmured. "She doesn't miss anything." The message reached Dominic instantly. Act 1 opened. Dance of the Snowflakes. Tiny dancers twirled under falling paper snow. Dominic sat center orchestra. 4 loyal men around him disguised as ordinary parents. Lucas waited backstage, eyes tracking the planted security, hand resting near the concealed Glock. Raymond sat in the security office, headphones on, monitoring Russo frequencies. Intermission. Miss Caroline sent the signal. "The Swan is ready." Mr. Raines read it, exhaled, chambered around. The 4 plants began drifting toward their strike positions, 2 toward the wings, 2 toward the rear exits. Dominic's counter-team watched every step. Act 2. The lights dimmed. Sophia stepped into the single spotlight for The Dying Swan. Slow, graceful, heartbreaking. The audience held its breath. Across the street, Mr. Raines settled behind the scope, finger curling on the trigger. Lucas's replacement team breached the office building stairwell, silent, swift. They reached the 6th floor at the same moment Dominic gave the signal. Everything happened at once. Breached door. Mr. Raines spun. Flashlights blinded him. He dropped the rifle without a word. He knew the game was over. On stage level, loyal security closed on Webb. But Kosloff, Murphy, Hendricks, before any could draw. Plainclothes officers moved in, cuffs ready. Then Carlo Brennan rose from row G, center aisle. In his right hand, a small black device, thumb pressed hard on the trigger. "Nobody moves," he said, voice carrying over the stunned silence. "Or I blow this entire theater to hell!" Panic rippled outward. Parents clutched children. Carlo lifted his coat, wires snaked beneath, connected to a vest. "Explosives throughout the building! Seats, backstage, lobby! You think you stopped us, Castellano? You just made it bigger." Dominic stood slowly, hands raised. "You want me, Carlo? Let these people go. We settle this ourselves." Carlo's laugh was thin. "Too late. You killed this child the moment you refused to kneel to the Russo family." On stage, Miss Caroline froze, face ashen. She had expected one clean shot, not this. In the aisle, Lily saw what no one else did. Carlo kept glancing at the stage-left exit. He wanted out, but he couldn't release the switch. His thumb trembled, cramping, fighting to hold pressure. Before Margaret could grab her, Lily walked down the aisle. Margaret screamed her name. Security lunged. Dominic raised a hand. "Wait!" Lily stopped in front of Carlo, no tremor in her small frame. "You don't want to do this," she said quietly. "You don't want to hurt all these kids." Carlo looked down. "Get back, little girl. This isn't your concern." "I watched my parents die when I was 4, Lily said. "I know what it sounds like. The bang that isn't a bang. The smell like fireworks and metal. The way everything goes quiet after. I still dream about it every night." Her voice stayed gentle, but steady. "Those kids here, if you do this, they'll dream about it too, forever. Is that what you want?" Carlo's hand shook. He had a daughter, 7. She took ballet on Saturdays. His thumb slipped, just a fraction. Lucas closed the distance in 2 strides. One hand clamped Carlo's wrist, the other twisted the switch free. Secure. Carlo crumpled. Bomb squad confirmed. Devices real, but amateur wiring. Casualties possible, not certain. Carlo was cuffed, weeping. Police flooded in. Arrests, the 4 plants, Miss Caroline, sobbing, insisting she never knew about bombs. Carlo, Mr. Raines dragged from across the street. Parents evacuated children in a dazed rush. Many thought it was only a security scare. Sophia was already gone, safe with Francesca. Lily stood in the aisle, shaking now, reaction crashing in. Margaret ran to her. He held her tight. Both cried. Dominic knelt in front of Lily. "You saved everyone in this theater. You saved my daughter, even though she wasn't here. You're the bravest person I've ever met." Lily wiped her eyes. "Did you save the bodyguard's sister?" Dominic's face tightened. "Not yet. But I promise you, before this night is over, we will." His phone rang. The team at the port. They'd found Emily, Warehouse 7, but Antonio Russo was there too. He knew the theater plan had failed. He'd just given the order. Kill her now. Dominic's black SUV tore through the port district, headlights slicing the fog. Lucas sat shotgun, knuckles white on the door handle. 6 loyal men followed in 2 more vehicles, silent, armed, ready. Raymond's voice crackled over the encrypted line. "SWAT is 20 minutes out. But hold position." "We don't have 20 minutes, Dominic said, flooring the accelerator through a red light. Tires screamed. "We're not losing her. You hear me, Lucas? We're bringing her home." Lucas stared straight ahead, jaw locked. 3 years of videos, of Emily's face growing thinner, eyes emptier. Minutes away now, or seconds too late. Pier 7 rose out of the mist, the old fish processing plant, chain-link fence sagging, windows grimed black. They killed engines a block out, moved on foot. Thermal imaging from the tech bag showed 2 heat signatures in the basement. One small and still, one larger, pacing. Dominic split the team. I take 4 through the front. Distraction. Lucas, you and 2 go around back for the basement. We move fast. No hesitation. Lucas met his eyes. Guess I'm getting her out even if I have to die doing it. They knew the odds. Outgunned. Russo expecting trouble after the theater. But no one spoke the word retreat. Dominic led his group through the shattered main doors. The warehouse floor smelled of old brine and diesel. Antonio Russo waited at the far end, silver hair gleaming under sodium lights, suit jacket open, sweat darkening the silk. 4 soldiers flanked him, rifles leveled. You should have accepted my offer to buy your territory, Dominic, Antonio said. Now you've lost everything. I haven't lost what matters. Dominic's voice was calm. You taught me that. A man who threatens children has already lost his soul. Antonio laughed, sharp and wet. Philosophical to the end. Your daughter dies tonight, Castellano. If not at the theater, then wherever you've hidden her. I have resources you can't imagine. Dominic let the words hang. Antonio kept talking. Villain's mistake. He explained it all. How they'd arranged the accident 3 years ago, Dominic's wife losing control on a rain-slick road. She wasn't supposed to die, just a scare, but these things happen. Rage turned to ice inside Dominic. He gave the subtle signal, 2 fingers down his thigh. Below ground, Lucas moved through dark hallways, mold, rust, the sour stink of human fear and waste. Tony took point, silenced pistol ready. 1 guard rounded a corner. Tony dropped him before he could shout. Lucas didn't look back. They reached the final door. Lucas kicked it open. Emily sat chained to a pipe in the corner. 28 years old, but her body told a different story. Gaunt, bruised, one eye swollen shut, hair matted. She lifted her head at the noise, then flinched away. You're not real, she whispered. You're not real. He's not coming. He forgot me. Lucas dropped to his knees in front of her. Emmy, it's me. I'm real. I'm here. I never forgot you for a single second. Tears cut tracks through the grime on her face. Lucas pulled bolt cutters from his pack, severed the chain links. She sagged forward. He caught her, lifted her in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Tony and Frank moved to cover the hallway. Radio crackled. We have her. Extraction in 60 seconds. Above, Dominic smiled at Antonio. You're right about one thing. I've learned what matters, and it isn't mercy for men who torture innocent women. He gave the final signal. His men opened fire, not kill shots, but controlled bursts into the ceiling, into crates. My smoke grenades rolled across the floor. Flash bangs cracked white. Chaos swallowed the room. Antonio spun toward the exit. Too late. SWAT breached from 3 sides. Raymond had finally gotten them there. Officers swarmed. Antonio tried to run. 3 tackled him to the concrete. Lucas carried Emily out the back as sirens rose. They reached the SUV. Frank, EMT training, climbed in beside them, started an IV line while Lucas held her hand. Emily's eyes fluttered. I knew you'd come, she breathed. I knew you didn't abandon me. Dominic surrendered to the first officers on scene, hands up, calm. For questioning, he said. Raymond had already arranged the paperwork, self-defense, credible threat, witnesses everywhere. He'd walk free soon. As cuffs clicked on for appearance, Dominic looked across the flashing lights. Lucas sat in the open ambulance door, Emily's head on his shoulder. Their eyes met. A single nod. Brotherhood forged in fire. New Harbor General. VIP wing. Emily lay under crisp sheets, monitors beeping steady. Doctors listed the damage: severe malnutrition, dehydration, old fractures, deep psychological trauma. Months of therapy ahead. But she would live. Lucas refused to leave her side. Minor burns and cuts on his own arms went untreated until she slept. 3 days later, Dominic walked out of custody. All charges dropped. He drove home to the estate under a gray afternoon sky. On the front steps sat Lily, small coat buttoned tight, Margaret beside her. Lily held a sheet of paper, edges curled from her grip. Dominic stopped. Lily stood, walked to him, held out the drawing. A crayon girl in a dress held hands with a man in a suit. On above them, careful letters. Family isn't who you're born to, it's who saves you. Dominic took the paper. His throat closed. He knelt. Thank you, he said quietly. Lily looked up at him. You kept your promise. He nodded once. And I'll keep keeping it. Sunday dinner at the Castellano estate no longer felt like a formality. The long oak table, once polished and empty except for Dominic's solitary place setting, now groaned under platters of roasted lamb, garlic mashed potatoes, and Margaret's famous tiramisu. Sunlight slanted through the tall windows, catching the silverware and the faces around the table. Dominic sat at the head, sleeves rolled to his elbows, listening. Isabella perched beside him, safe and thriving, her dark hair in a loose braid. She chattered about the upcoming spring ballet showcase, and oblivious to how close the winter recital had come to ending everything. Across from her sat Lily, 8 now, in a simple blue dress that still looked new on her. She was quieter than Isabella, but the wariness in her eyes had softened. She smiled more easily these days. Margaret occupied the chair to Lily's left, laughing at something Emily said. Dominic had hired her 6 months ago as Isabella's full-time nanny, triple her previous salary, plus the guest house on the estate grounds. She treated every child at the table like her own. To Dominic's right sat Lucas in his traditional place, but the title had changed. No longer bodyguard, partner, equal owner in Castellano Security Solutions, the legitimate firm that had replaced the old shadows. Emily sat beside him, 40 pounds heavier than the night they carried her out of Warehouse 7. Sick color had returned to her cheeks. Laughter flickered back into her eyes. She still attended therapy 3 times a week, still woke some nights gasping from nightmares. But she was healing. Dominic had given her a quiet job in accounting at the import/export side, structured numbers, predictable hours, no questions asked. The business itself had transformed. Over 6 months, Dominic dismantled what remained of the old empire. No more protection rackets, no more backroom deals. Castellano Security Solutions now protected high-risk executives, consulted on corporate vulnerabilities, and trained personnel, clean contracts, audited books. Many of the old crew had transitioned with him. The ones who couldn't adapt were cut loose with severance and a clear warning. The Russo family's collapse had left a vacuum, but Dominic brokered the peace himself. Territories divided quietly, no blood spilled. Antonio Russo was serving 25 years, kidnapping, conspiracy, racketeering. Carlo Brennan took a plea, traded testimony for a reduced sentence. Miss Caroline received probation and community service. She had cooperated fully, horrified when she learned the full bombing plan. Mr. Raines faced 15 years. The 4 planted security men were scattered across state prisons. The Russo machine had folded like wet paper. Isabella and Lily had become inseparable. Isabella knew the age-appropriate version of the truth. Lily had warned her father about bad men. And because of Lily, everyone was safe. Isabella's hero worship was open and fierce. "Lily is the bravest person I know," she announced at least once a day. And they were already planning a joint birthday party, Lily's 8th and Isabella's 11th, in the garden next month. Lily now attended the same private school as Isabella, on a full scholarship Dominic arranged without fanfare. Conversation flowed easily around the table. Isabella complained about algebra homework. Lucas teased Emily about the therapist she'd started dating. "He's nice, but does he know you hate surprises?" Emily rolled her eyes and threw a bread roll at him. Margaret told a story about her youngest son's disastrous first attempt at cooking, and everyone laughed until Isabella had to wipe her eyes. After plates were cleared, Dominic found himself on the porch with Lily. The sunset painted New Harbor in rose and gold. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. I never properly thanked you," Dominic said at last. "You saved my daughter, my brother, his sister. You saved me from becoming the kind of man whose child died because he was too proud to listen." Lily considered the horizon. "I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just told you the truth. Grown-ups don't always listen to kids, but you did." A pause. Lily shifted, hesitant. "Mr. Castellano, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Isabella calls you Dad, and sometimes—" She trailed off, cheeks pink. Dominic understood instantly. He knelt to her level. "Would you like to call me something other than Mr. Castellano?" She nodded, small and shy. "Could I call you Uncle Dom?" "Margaret said I should ask first." His throat tightened. "I would be honored. More than honored." Margaret stepped onto the porch, having overheard. She cleared her throat. "I've been talking to social services. I'm getting too old for foster placements. I want permanency for her, real roots. I was thinking about adoption, making it official. But I wanted to know if you'd consider—" She hesitated. "Being her godfather. Legal guardian if anything ever happens to me." "Yes," Dominic said without pause. "Absolutely yes." Lily launched herself at him, arms around his neck, the first time she had initiated contact. He held her carefully, this tiny, brave girl who had changed the course of so many lives. Later, everyone gathered on the lawn for a family photo. Raymond stood at the edge, sleeves rolled, no longer just security chief, but a fixture at every Sunday dinner. Lucas and Emily flanked him. Isabella and Lily stood in front, arms linked. Margaret beamed beside Dominic. Nina, once Isabella's protective shadow, now simply family friend, held the camera. Everyone smile. Real smiles. Not the practiced kind. Dominic looked around at these people. Not bound by blood, but by choice, sacrifice, love. He had spent 15 years building an empire of fear, surviving attempts on his life, betrayals that would have broken lesser men. He had believed power meant never showing weakness, never trusting, always striking first. A 7-year-old girl in a faded denim jacket had taught him otherwise. Real power was protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Real strength was choosing love over fear. Real family was who showed up when it mattered most. Isabella tugged Lily's sleeve. "Show me your drawing." Lily held up her sketch pad. The Castellano estate, windows glowing, tiny figures in each one. Above it, careful letters. "Home is where people choose to love you." Dominic looked at the drawing, at his daughter, at Lily, at everyone gathered there. A little girl had once whispered 5 words that saved his life. Your bodyguard works for them. In saving his life, she had given him something far greater, a reason to live it right. They filed inside for dessert, laughter echoing through a house that was no longer empty. Dominic Castellano had spent 15 years as New Harbor's most feared man. But tonight, watching a 7-year-old girl teach his daughter how to shade a sunset, listening to Lucas and Emily laugh at Margaret's stories, he realized he had finally become something more important than feared. He had become the kind of man a child could trust. And that, he thought, was the only empire worth building.